The pub had that Friday night buzz. Clinking glasses. The shuffle of chairs. Voices overlapping in a messy symphony of laughter and irritation. Then, bam. The piece cracked like glass. A woman's shrill voice cut through the air. Are you seriously ignoring the staff? You think you're better than everyone here? Heads snapped around. Everyone froze. What the hell just happened? The man at the center of it all. Tall. Quiet. Broad-shouldered. Didn't even raise his voice. He had simply walked to the counter. Leaned a little closer to hear the bartender over the noise and nodded when asked if he wanted another drink. That's it. Nothing outrageous. Nothing hostile. Yet somehow, this tiny moment of calm respect had been twisted into an insult, and Karen took it as a personal war declaration. Excuse me, she barked, stomping closer. The wooden floor groaned beneath her heels, like even the building wanted her to stop. Her face flushed red, lips pursed, eyes darting around as if searching for an audience. You ignored the staff. You ignored me.
Sight.
That low, tired sigh that carries years of patience. He rubbed the bridge of his nose. Ma'am, I didn't ignore anyone. I was just ordering. His voice was steady, calm, almost annoyingly calm. The kind that only makes a person like Karen burn hotter. Oh, don't you ma'am me, she screeched, throwing her arms up like some amateur actress. This is disrespect. This is exactly what's wrong with men like you. Thinking you can walk in, take up space, treat people like they're invisible. The bartender, a young woman with dark circles under her eyes, tried to interject. It's fine. He didn't. But Karen cut her off with a sharp wave, like swatting at a fly. No. Don't cover for him. Don't you dare. The pub murmured. People leaned in. Chairs creaked. Someone chuckled nervously. And then, crash. Karen shoved the man's glass right off the counter. It shattered into glittering shards across the wooden floor. The sound snapped everyone to attention. Lady, stop. Someone called. Another muttered. Oh God. Here we go. The man's jaw tightened. His eyes flickered. Something colder. Sharper. But he still didn't raise his voice. That was unnecessary. Karen leaned in close. Her perfume hitting like a toxic cloud. Unnecessary. You think you can ignore me? Ignore the staff and get away with it. And then, slam. Her palm smacked his shoulder. Hard enough to make him stumble back half a step. Gasps rippled. A chair scraped violently. A group of men at the back stood up. One of them, wearing a navy jacket, muttered, "Not this again." But instead of intervening right away, they watched, waiting. Karen, now drunk on her own adrenaline, squared her shoulders. Her voice dropped into a hiss. You don't get to disrespect people in my town. The man inhaled slowly, chest rising like a tide. Then, his tone shifted. You've made a mistake. What? She snapped, loud enough to rattle the glasses behind the bar. That's when it happened. The group of men who'd been watching. They weren't random patrons. They moved in sync. Fast. Professional. One barked. Hands off him. Ma'am. Another pulled something from his jacket. Black. Nylon. Unmistakable. Zip ties. What? Wait. What the hell? Karen shrieked. But it was too late. In seconds. Her wrists were yanked behind her back. A thud echoed as her knees hit the floorboards. Someone shouted, "Police!" And the entire pub tilted into chaos. "Oh my God! She's being arrested," whispered a woman clutching her drink. "Already?" Another laughed nervously. "She attacked him, didn't she?" Karen thrashed. No, you can't. This is assault. He's the one who ignored." "Quiet," snapped the man with the navy jacket. His badge flashed under the dim light. catching every eye. A detective. Not just a random cop. The whole place sucked in a breath at once. The quiet man, the one Karen attacked, finally spoke again. But his voice wasn't calm anymore. Carried authority. Carried finality. You just assaulted a federal agent. Ma'am. Pin could have dropped. The pub went dead silent. Karen froze, eyes wide, mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. What did you just say? You heard me, he said, stepping closer, towering over her trembling figure on the floor. You hit a federal agent. Congratulations. Whispers spiraled through the room like wildfire. She hit a fed. Oh, she's done. She's going to regret that. Karen shook her head violently, strands of hair sticking to her face. No. I didn't know. He didn't say. He didn't show. The detective's laugh was sharp, humorless. You don't get a free pass just because you didn't bother to ask. Her voice cracked, desperation clawing out now. This isn't fair. He was ignoring me. Someone in the back snorted. Another muttered under their breath. Lady, shut up already. The federal agent crouched slightly, lowering his voice to a razor-sharp whisper only she could hear. But everyone could feel the weight of it. You don't know how lucky you are. If I wasn't off duty, this would have gone very differently. Karen's chest heaved, a trembling sob breaking loose. The crowd's eyes burned holes into her back. The humiliation seeped deeper than any arrest could. Then, like fate's cruel encore, the bartender finally spoke up. Louder this time. Her voice wavered, but it carried enough for the room to hear. He was actually the only one tonight who treated me with respect. He said thank you. He asked how my shift was going. Gasped. A low murmur of disbelief. Heads shaking. Someone whispered, "Oh my God, she attacked the one good guy." Karen's face drained of color. All the fight evaporated. She sagged against the zip ties. For the first time, she looked small. But the night wasn't finished with her yet. Another officer stepped in. Voice steady. Ma'am, you're under arrest for assault. You'll have your chance to explain to the judge. The agent stood tall again, shoulders squared, watching silently as Karen was lifted to her feet, wrists bound, cheeks wet with shame. As they led her out, the pub erupted, some in laughter, some in applause, others shaking their heads in stunned disbelief. One man raised his glass, smirking, to karma. The door slammed shut behind her, and just like that, the noise returned. Glasses clinked, chairs shuffled, conversations picked up. But under it all lingered the crackle of something unforgettable. Because everyone there knew they had witnessed more than just a bar fight. They had witnessed a reckoning. Karen had walked in,
fueled by ego,
itching for a fight, and walked out zip-tied. Her name already a cautionary tale. The twist. Her arrest didn't just end that night. It sparked something bigger. The next morning, the story broke in local news. Security cameras had caught the entire incident. And suddenly, Karen wasn't just a pub problem. She was viral. Her face plastered across every screen. Her rage forever immortalized. And the man she attacked, he never raised his hand, never shouted, never even flinched. He didn't need to, because justice, real justice, sometimes comes faster, sharper and colder than anyone expects. And that's the story, raw and uncut. If this made your heart race, your jaw drop, or even made you mutter karma's real, then don't forget to drop a comment. Share your thoughts and hit subscribe on our YouTube channel for more stories like this. It started with the motion lights flaring on, then a rustle too heavy for a cat, too clumsy for a raccoon. And then I heard it, the soft click of my backyard gate unlatching. What the hell? Who's out there at midnight, creeping around like a thief? I was halfway to the back door when I saw her on the security feed. Karen in her ridiculous pink robe and slippers, holding a clipboard like she was doing a midnight inspection. My jaw dropped. Couldn't believe it. This woman had the nerve to trespass into my yard at night? I slammed the door open, but before I could yell, something else moved fast. A low, sharp bark cut through the night. Then another, and a voice, clear and firm, called out from 2 houses over, "Kilo, heel. Stay on her." Oh no. Karen froze mid-step, her slipper caught on a garden hose. She wobbled like a bad cartoon character, arms flailing. Behind her, my neighbor Clint, retired Marine, now a K-9 officer with the local police, was sprinting down the side fence, flashlight beams slicing through the dark like a blade. His German shepherd, Kilo, stayed low to the ground, ears up, locked onto Karen like a missile. "What are you doing in their yard?" Clint's voice boomed across the fence. His tone wasn't angry, it was official. That kind of cop tone that makes even honest people sweat. Karen squealed, actually squealed, like a possum cornered under a porch light. "2 was just inspecting for code violations," she shouted, clipboard clutched like a shield. At midnight, I stepped out fully now, robe flapping behind me like some half-asleep Jedi. "Karen, you broke into my yard. What is wrong with you?" "I didn't break in," she shrieked. "I slipped in. The gate was unlocked." Clint climbed the fence like it was a jungle gym, Kilo already trotting ahead. He stood between her and my porch. "That's trespassing. You've been warned about this, Karen." "Oh yeah, warned." This wasn't the first time she'd pulled some stunt. Karen had a history of enforcing HOA rules like she was queen of a tiny suburban kingdom. Complaints about non-regulation patio furniture, fake grass being visually aggressive, and once I swear on my life she threatened to fine a neighbor for having their recycling bin too visible on non-collection days. She tried it on me last month, sending me a violation letter because my wind chimes sounded like morning spirits. Clint actually laughed when I showed him that one. But now, this was a whole new level. "You have no authority to inspect anyone's yard," Clint said sharply, crossing his arms. "You're not on the board anymore. You were removed. Remember?" Her eyes darted like trapped prey. "That vote was rigged. And besides, his yard has unauthorized garden lighting. It's a fire hazard." "Oh, now you care about safety?" I barked. "Then why'd you sneak in without telling anyone and risk getting mauled by a police dog?" Kilo gave a low growl just to emphasize the point. Karen stumbled back and nearly sat in the wet grass. "I'm calling the HOA," she yelled. "Please do," Clint said dryly. "And I'll call the precinct. Let's see which one shows up first." Karen's face turned a shade of blotchy red that made her look like an overripe tomato. Her mouth opened and closed like she was buffering. And the twist. My back gate creaked again, but this time it was my motion light camera panning. Clint's wife, Lacey, also a K-9 officer and, frankly, way scarier than Clint when she wants to bestep through the gate holding Karen's purse. "She dropped this when she tried to hop the fence out of the Walters' yard," Lacey said. "Found it next to their koi pond. Smelled like gin and petunias." Karen gasped, clutching her chest like she was in a soap opera. "That's a lie. 2 wasn't in their yard. You were..." Lacey cut in, calm but cold. "Caught you on the Walters cameras. You trampled their flower beds and scared their elderly Pomeranian into a panic attack. He peed all over their sunroom rug." A beat of silence. I swear even the crickets stopped chirping. "Karen," I took a breath. "You broke into 3 backyards in the middle of the night, while tipsy with a clipboard, claiming to do code enforcement? Were you planning to arrest my lawn gnome next?" "I was performing a community service," she shouted, voice cracking. "Someone has to enforce the rules." "No, someone has to follow them," Clint snapped. "You've been harassing neighbors for months. Now you've committed criminal trespassing while intoxicated, and we have multiple cameras, plus a very detailed statement from a traumatized Pomeranian." Karen actually wailed. "You can't arrest me. I'm the founder of this HOA." "You were," Lacey replied. "Now you're just a liability." I almost felt bad. Almost. She sat down right there on my patio pavers, legs splayed, slippers soaked, muttering something about citizens' rights and emergency shrub inspections. Clint pulled out his phone. You can either leave peacefully, or I can call in a formal report. Your choice. Karen sniffed. Fine, I'll go. But this is not the end of this. Oh, I agree, I said, crossing my arms. Because next time, I'm pressing charges. And as she stormed off, shuffled, really still soggy and humiliated, Kilo let out one final bark. Just a warning. She nearly tripped over her own clipboard. When I turned to Clint and Lacey, I let out a long sigh. God, what's it going to take to make her stop? Lacey shrugged. We'll file a neighborhood incident report. But I'd also recommend some new locks and motion-triggered sprinklers. Clint grinned. Or booby-trap your yard with HOA violation signs. She'll avoid those like garlic. I laughed genuinely. For the first time in a while, it felt like maybe this madness would end. But of course, Karen wasn't done. Not even close. She came back 2 days later with a new plan. 2 days later, just as Clint predicted, Karen showed up again. Not in a robe this time, but in a stiff pantsuit like she was going to court or thought she was. She stood on the sidewalk, right outside my property line, waving a manila envelope in the air like it was the Constitution. "I've filed a lawsuit," she screeched. "You'll all regret humiliating me." I stepped outside, coffee mug in hand, keeping a casual lean on the porch rail. Clint and Lacey had just finished their morning K9 drills and were standing in their yard with matching smirks. Kilo let out a sharp bark from behind their fence, just loud enough to rattle Karen's little performance. "Lawsuit for what, Karen?" I asked, sipping my coffee. "Emotional damage caused by your own trespassing?" She jabbed the envelope in the air like it was a weapon. "For false accusations, public defamation, and illegal dog intimidation." Clint choked back a laugh. "Karen, my dog is a licensed officer. He could have arrested you himself." "I have rights," she bellowed. "You also have charges pending," Lacey said coolly, stepping toward her with a small stack of printed screenshots. "Want to talk about the footage of you in the Walters yard? Or the statement from the HOA board officially barring you from enforcement duties?" Karen paled. "That board's illegitimate." "Nope," I replied, pulling out my phone and reading the email aloud. "Dear HOA members, due to repeated code violations and unauthorized behavior, Karen Swindle has been removed from all official roles effective immediately." "Fake. That's a fake letter," she screamed, her face now a furious, melting shade of red. Just then, a police cruiser turned onto our street comm. Deliberate. Officer Raines stepped out, the same one who took statements the night of the trespass. Karen's face drained. "Afternoon, ma'am," he said. "Got a call from the Walters again. Seems someone matching your description was seen near their yard last night." Karen clutched her envelope tighter. "This is harassment. I'll add all of you to the lawsuit." Officer Raines nodded. "Great. You can discuss that with the judge, since they've now requested a no-contact order." Her jaw fell open. "You can't do that. I built this neighborhood." "Exactly," I said softly. "And now it's time to let it heal from you." Karen stood frozen, vibrating with outrage, until she finally stomped off again, trailing curses and threats of legal ruin behind her like a bad cologne. And just like that, the street felt quieter, lighter. Even the birds started chirping again. Funny how the loudest people always crumble hardest when the law steps in. And if you enjoyed this little taste of justice, betrayal, and backyard revenge, subscribe to the channel for more real HOA drama that ends with lawsuits and karma both served cold. It started with a shadow falling over me, not from a cloud, not from a tree, but from her. Karen. Hands on hips, lips pressed so tight they could crack glass. "You can't just lay out here like this," she hissed, blocking the sun as if she owned it. I blinked up at her, the warm breeze still brushing my face, and said the most dangerous word in her HO-obsessed world. "Why?" Her voice sharpened like a snapped twig. "Because it's against the rules. This is a common area, and I'm calling 911 if you don't move." My heart gave a jolt, not from fear, but from the audacity. The sheer absurdity. Was she serious? Oh, she was. She whipped out her phone like she was about to film the crime of the century. Me, a guy in his own neighborhood, lying on a lounge chair by the pool with a towel over my lap. I could have explained right then. I could have told her that the HOA bylaws had a very specific accessibility clause, one I had fought for 2 years ago after my accident. That my spinal injury wasn't visible unless you knew what to look for. That this very spot was approved for my therapeutic sun sessions, signed and sealed in HOA records. But no, I just stared at her, letting her dig her own hole. 911, yes, she began loudly, pacing for dramatic effect. I have a man trespassing by the community pool, refusing to leave. He's acting suspicious. Suspicious? I was wearing swim trunks and sunscreen. I could hear the dispatcher through the muffled speaker. Ma'am, is there a weapon involved? She gasped, like she just realized she was the heroine of her own daytime drama. I can't confirm that, but he's hostile. I wasn't even speaking. By the time 2 patrol cars rolled up, Karen was practically vibrating with righteous fury. She pointed at me like a witchfinder general spotting the accused. That's him. The younger officer glanced between us, clearly confused. Sir, are you a resident here? I sat up slowly, feeling the heat of the sun leave my shoulders. Yes, officer. And before you say anything, you might want to see this. I pulled out my phone, opened the HOA's digital archive. Yes. I keep my receipts, and tapped on a PDF. HOA Accessibility Accommodation Approval 2023. It had my name, my unit number, and a statement granting me use of the poolside lounge for daily physical therapy. Signed by the HOA board president. And notarized. Karen's smirk twitched. That's forged, she blurted out. The officer raised an eyebrow. Forged? Ma'am, this is an official HOA record. It's time-stamped and filed. But she didn't back down. No, Karen doubled down like it was her calling. I know all the board members. None of them would approve this. This man is committing fraud against the HOA. Fraud. She was really going there. I let out a slow, disbelieving laugh. You're accusing me of forging an HOA document while 2 police officers are standing here looking at the HOA's own website? You sure you want to stick with that? She did. And that, right there, was her fatal mistake. The older officer sighed, clearly annoyed. Ma'am, do you have any actual evidence of forgery? Her eyes darted left. Right then she pulled a crumpled paper from her tote bag. Here, this is the real rules document. No one's allowed to reserve the lounge chairs. Except her real document looked odd. Different font, mismatched headers. My brain clicked into overdrive. I recognized the exact HOA template, but the wording had been altered. You forged that, I said, pointing. And you've been handing it around the neighborhood, haven't you? The older officer took it, scanning line by line. His brow furrowed. Ma'am, where did you get this? Karen crossed her arms. I made copies from the official file in the clubhouse. Copies or edits? His voice had a new edge. I stayed silent, just watching her spiral. It was like watching a raccoon steal shiny things from a trap and not realize the door was closing. The younger cop stepped toward me. Sir, can you send that HOA PDF to our department's email for verification? Oh, gladly. My thumb tapped send. I could feel Karen's glare like a laser. She tried to regain control, speaking to the officers like they were her personal enforcers. Look, I'm the HOA compliance chair. I know what I'm doing. The older officer shook his head. Ma'am, this looks like it's been altered to remove accessibility accommodations. That's a serious matter, potentially fraud. I almost felt bad. Almost. A neighbor, Mrs. Ellis from Unit 4B, had wandered out, drawn by the sirens. What's going on? She asked, her voice quivering with curiosity. Karen turned to her like a politician addressing a crowd. He's using the pool illegally. I'm protecting our community. Mrs. Ellis squinted at her. Karen, I was at the board meeting when we approved his access. I voted yes. What are you talking about? The silence was thick. You could almost hear the thud as Karen's credibility fell off a cliff. The younger officer cleared his throat. "Ma'am, I'm going to ask you to step over here while we get statements." Her voice went up an octave. "Statements? I'm the victim here." Oh, that was rich. When the officers separated us, the older one lowered his voice to me. "Sir, if what I'm seeing is true, she might have committed a criminal offense by altering those HOA rules. Could be a civil lawsuit too." A slow, tight smile crept over my face, already drafting it in my head. Because here's the thing, Karen had been a thorn in my side for months. Petty notes about my yard, passive-aggressive emails about neighborhood standards, even a bogus fine for leaving my recycling bin out too long. But this was the perfect setup for a counterstrike. When the officers finally left without even taking my statement beyond the basics, Karen was left standing there, arms crossed, cheeks red as a fire hydrant. She muttered something about talking to the board, but the way she avoided my eyes told me she knew the tide had turned. The very next morning, I filed a formal complaint with the HOA president, attaching every shred of evidence. The police report, photos of her altered rules document, and my legally approved access form. By day 3, the board sent out a community-wide email. Short, brutal, and crystal clear. Any attempt to alter official HOA documents constitutes fraud and will be met with legal action. Karen's name wasn't in the email, but everyone knew. And then came the twist I didn't see coming. The president called me personally. "She's been doing this for a while," he said grimly. "We found other changes she made to enforce rules that don't exist. We're considering removing her from the board entirely." I leaned back in my chair, feeling that rare kind of satisfaction you don't get often in life. Do what you need to do. And as I hung up, I couldn't help but wonder how many people had she bullied before me? By the end of the week, the HOA board scheduled an emergency meeting closed session. No residents allowed except those directly involved. But word traveled fast in our little neighborhood, and I got text after text. "They're grilling her right now. She's shouting about being framed. You should hear the things she's saying." I didn't have to imagine. I could hear her voice from the other side of the community hall when I arrived to drop off an extra set of documents. That high, sharp-toned defensive, frantic, and just a little unhinged. When the door finally opened, the board president stepped out, his face a mask of weary authority. Karen came storming out behind him, eyes red, clutching her tote bag like it was a life raft. "She's been removed from all HOA positions effective immediately," the president told me in a low voice, "and she's being referred to the HOA's attorney." I raised an eyebrow. "For fraud?" He nodded grimly. "And defamation. The police report's in play. She made false statements to 911 and to the board about you. If you wanted to pursue a lawsuit, you'd have a very strong case." Oh, I wanted to. That night, I called my lawyer. We'd dealt with the HOA before, but this was different. This wasn't just about my right to use a lounge chair. It was about the principle. You don't get to harass someone, forge documents, lie to the police, and just walk away. Within days, the demand letter went out clean, concise, and devastating. It cited the ADA accessibility clause, the police report, and the board's own findings. Damages were on the table. Karen was about to find out that legal fees stack up a lot faster than petty HOA fines. The real kicker? The HOA voted to cover my legal expenses, since my fight had exposed her misconduct. That meant Karen wasn't just fighting me, she was fighting the very HOA she'd once ruled over like a self-appointed queen. I wish I could say she put up a brave front. She didn't. Neighbors saw her on her porch, phone in hand, crying into it while pacing back and forth. The for sale sign appeared less than a month later. The lawsuit didn't even need to go to trial. She settled, quietly, but not cheaply. When I walked out to my lounge chair again, sun warming my shoulders, the same spot she tried to take from me, I couldn't help the small, satisfied sigh that slipped out. The breeze carried the faint sounds of kids playing, sprinklers ticking, and somewhere, a moving truck's engine rumbling. Karen was gone, and the HOA had learned a very expensive lesson. Messing with the wrong neighbor can backfire in ways you can't even imagine. So if you liked hearing how a forged document and a false 911 call turned into Karen's downfall and a lawsuit she'll never forget, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more real HOA justice stories. You won't believe this. I swear. If someone told me this was fiction, I'd laugh in their face. But nope, this mess was real. It all blew up one bright morning when Karen, the notorious HOA president, stormed into our quiet neighborhood like she owned the place. Again. But this time, she went way too far. I mean, she forged court papers. Forged. Can you even imagine the nerve? And the worst part, she tried to hold a fake trial in our community clubhouse to fine me over a totally made-up violation. What? Who does that? Seriously, who? I remember sitting there, heart pounding like a drum in my chest, watching her strut around with that smug look like she'd already won. You'll pay for your infractions, she sneered. But the whole thing was a sham. I mean, she handed out those court documents like candy, but they were nothing but fraud. Forged signatures, fake dates, the works. I could feel the anger bubbling inside me, hot and sharp, almost enough to make me yell right then and there. But no, I had to stay calm. Had to play her game. At least for now. The clubhouse was packed. Neighbors whispering, some confused, some terrified, others clearly siding with Karen because, well, she's the HOA president or so they thought. But the tension? Oh, it was thick like fog rolling in. You could almost hear the silent screams, the muffled gasps whenever Karen slammed her gavel or rather, a plastic toy hammer she grabbed from her kid's playroom because the real one was nowhere to be found. Pathetic, right? Order. Order in the court. Karen bellowed, her voice cracking slightly but still loud enough to command attention. This hearing is now in session. The defendant, Mr. Andrews, is charged with repeated violations of HOA regulations. She held up the forged papers, waving them like some kind of victory flag. The fine is $1,500, due immediately. My mouth went dry. My lawyer was nowhere to be seen because this wasn't a real court. This was a scam, a circus, and I was the main act. I glanced around, desperate for support, but many neighbors looked away, embarrassed or scared to get involved. Still, a few brave souls met my eyes with a flicker of doubt. They knew something wasn't right. Karen, I finally spoke up, my voice steady despite the rage inside me. These documents are forged. This trial is a fraud. You have no authority to do this. A few gasps echoed around the room, the atmosphere crackling with suspense. Karen's face twisted into a snarl. How dare you accuse me of forgery? She hissed. You'll regret this. And here's where the twist kicks in. Just as she was about to ramble on, the clubhouse door slammed open. In walked the real sheriff, yes. The sheriff flanked by 2 deputies. The room froze. You could hear a pin drop. Karen Miller, the sheriff said firmly. You're under arrest for forgery, fraud, and impersonating a court official. Wait, what? The entire room erupted in shock. Karen's smug grin evaporated faster than morning mist. This is a mistake, she stammered, her voice cracking like broken glass. I'm the HOA president, I have the right. No, you don't. The sheriff cut her off, pulling out handcuffs. You forged legal documents to extort money from your neighbors. We've been investigating for months. I exhaled hard, the tension breaking like a dam. It was surreal watching her struggle as they cuffed her right there, in front of everyone. The woman who acted like she ruled our neighborhood was just a fraud, plain and simple. And finally, karma had caught up with her. But let me back up a bit. You need the full picture because Karen's scheme was more twisted than you think. It started a few months earlier, when I got a letter slapped on my door. A notice from the HOA saying I owed a huge fine for unauthorized landscaping modifications. Funny, because I hadn't touched the yard except for watering. I called the HOA office, but the lady on the phone was vague, evasive even. Then the letters kept coming, more fines, more threats, all escalating. Something smelled rotten. I wasn't the only one. Turns out, Karen was targeting anyone who questioned her authority, or worse, those who refused to pay her fees. A few neighbors confided that they'd been harassed too, Some even intimidated into paying up just to avoid trouble. That's when I decided enough was enough. Digging through HOA records, I found some serious irregularities. The meeting minutes were doctored, signatures didn't match, and guess what? The court documents Karen presented in that fake trial complete fabrications. I contacted a real attorney who confirmed my fears. These were criminal acts. Meanwhile, Karen was spinning her web tighter. She held secret hearings, threatening fines, evictions, even towing cars illegally. She played the power game hard. It was like living under a dictatorship, but in our own little cul-de-sac. I couldn't believe how many people just accepted it, or worse, joined her. Fear, maybe, or maybe a twisted loyalty to the idea of control. But the breaking point was that fake trial. It was the last straw. When the sheriff showed up, it was because of a tip from one of Karen's own cronies, a neighbor who finally got fed up. They handed over emails, photos, even recordings of Karen bragging about her scam behind closed doors. The evidence was overwhelming. Watching the whole thing unfold felt like a scene from a movie. The disbelief, the shock, the whispers, and then the deafening silence as Karen was led out in cuffs. She kept shouting, "This isn't over. You'll all regret this." But nobody listened. We just stared, numb but relieved. And here's the kicker. After the arrest, the HOA board immediately resigned. They wanted no part of Karen's mess. New elections were called, and finally, our neighborhood started healing from the chaos. People came forward with stories, and the community banded together to reclaim what Karen had stolen: our trust, our peace, and yes, our dignity. Looking back, it's wild to think how close we were to losing everything to one person's greed and lies. Karen's downfall wasn't just about legal justice, it was a reminder that power abused always comes with a price. And sometimes that price hits harder than anyone expects. I still get chills remembering that day. The fake trial, the forged papers, the dramatic arrest. It felt like watching a nightmare unravel in slow motion. But it also taught me something important. Don't let fear silence you. Speak up. Fight back. Because sometimes that's what it takes to make justice real. Even after Karen was taken away, the ripples from her fraud didn't just disappear overnight. There were lawsuits, oh yes, plenty of them. Neighbors banded together, filing suit against her and the corrupt HOA board for the chaos, stress, and outright theft she caused. The legal battle dragged on for months. But finally, justice wasn't just a word, it was real, cold, and undeniable. Karen had to pay back every dollar she tried to scam out of us, with interest and penalties. That money, it went straight into a community fund to repair the damage she left behind. The whole ordeal changed our neighborhood forever. No more whispered fears or silent threats. Instead, there was laughter again, kids playing outside, and neighbors chatting like they hadn't done in years. We rebuilt more than just fences, and Lonsway rebuilt trust. And for me, it was a powerful reminder that no amount of power or bluster can shield you from the truth. Lies and forgery can crumble like dry leaves in the wind when people stand together. Karen? Well, she's no longer HOA president. That's for sure. She's facing multiple charges, and with the lawsuits piling up, her reputation is beyond repair. Funny how someone so obsessed with control ended up completely powerless. I almost feel sorry for her. But some people have to learn the hard way that playing dirty doesn't pay off. Sometimes I wonder what went through her mind when those deputies slapped on the cuffs. Shock? Anger? Fear? Maybe all three. But one thing's clear. She didn't expect to get caught. And she certainly didn't expect her own community to fight back so hard. The whole thing was a roller coaster from disbelief to anger, then to hope, and finally triumph. It's like we were trapped in a soap opera, except this one had real consequences. I've learned to never underestimate the power of standing up for what's right. And believe me, when your peace and your home are at stake, silence isn't an option. I still get messages from neighbors who say they were inspired to speak out because they saw what happened to Karen. That feels good. Like maybe, just maybe, sharing my story could help someone else who's stuck in a nightmare with their own Karen. So here's the deal: if you want to hear more stories like this, full of drama, justice, and that sweet taste of karma served cold, hit that subscribe button on my YouTube channel. Trust me, you don't want to miss the next lawsuit saga or the next HOA horror show. Sometimes the truth is stranger and way more satisfying than fiction. Thanks for sticking with me through this wild ride. Remember, never back down. Keep your eyes open, and if someone's forging court papers to fine you, call the real authorities and fight back. Because in the end, justice is louder than any forged gavel.